Hi everyone, my name's Karen on Lifestyle, and I do videos about hobbies, leisure, and travel. Today I'm going to start a new series on hand building or slab building with ceramic clay that you can use to give to friends and family or serve food on in your own kitchen. The clay that I will work with is food safe, as well as the glazes, which I'll talk about as time goes on. I don't feel there's a lot of information out there on YouTube about hand building or slab building. There's a lot of potters out there that do a wonderful job, and they're so much fun to watch. But a beginning hand building series is what I hope to do to get you some information on how to start this wonderful hobby. You can do it at home, you can do it at a studio. For the first little bit, we're going to be at the studio, then I'll do a video on doing this at home so that you can get into it and see if you like it well enough to invest in it. It's not an expensive hobby. Hand building uses very few tools except for a kiln, and that you can borrow. So today we're going to build a bowl. We're going to use forms, and we're going to talk about hump molds and slump molds. We're going to talk about some of the material used to form your clay on. There are many types of materials that do not stick to clay. Wood is a perfect example. This is a salad bowl that I got at the thrift store. Here's another example of a piece of wood. This makes a wonderful slump mold or hump mold. Bisqueware is another thing that does not stick to clay, neither does terracotta. This is just the bottom to a flower pot that you can get in any home and garden store. This is a piece of bisqueware. Bisque meaning after the first firing, the clay gets very hard. It's still, if I drop it, it would break, but it's very durable. It's very porous at this point. It certainly is not food safe. But it works as a great form. So sometimes I'll make heavy ones of these so that I can use them as forms. So some of the things that, bamboo also. Bamboo doesn't stick to clay, so bamboo is a wonderful material. A lot of times in a home decor store or in a thrift store, you can find bamboo bowls and decorative objects. One of the things that sticks to clay is anything glass, plastic, or stainless steel. All of these forms will just absolutely mold to the clay, and it will be impossible to get off. So you need something to use as a barrier between the form and the clay. A lot of people use cornstarch. That's what I use. It's easy to use, it's inexpensive. You can also use cooking spray and spray your form before you put the clay on. You can use baby powder. I've heard that being used a lot. I use cornstarch, works great, and is inexpensive. The piece will then really slide around on your form before you're ready. And did I mention it burns off in the kiln? It does. Any of these products burn off in that first firing so that you don't have to worry about that damaging your clay or your piece. You can also use wax paper or cling wrap. However, that will leave folds in your piece that you need to smooth out or use as a decorative aesthetic to your piece. So let's get started. I'm going to link all of the tools and the clay in the description below so that you'll have an idea where you can get clay sources. There will be a source in your area, no matter whether you live in the States or outside of the States. There's always going to be a place that produces clay for potters. Potters are worldwide. It's a good thing. The tools I'm going to link below. Many of them are available on Amazon. You do not have to go to a specialty store to get many of these tools, certainly the beginner tools. And I use a lot of things from the thrift store. A lot of kitchen tools will work as clay hand building tools. If you like this content and you want to check out the series and see all the different projects we're going to do, then please hit the subscribe button below and follow me in this series. Thanks so much. Let's get started. The next step I want to talk about is the clay. Clay typically comes in these giant 25-pound lugs. I want to make sure that you can see this very well when I cut this clay. And the first try you couldn't see very well. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm just wrapping this wire around the clay and pulling. And then I get a nice slab of clay. Now when you're hand building, I use these wonderful clips. You can get them at IKEA. I'm not sure where else you can get them, but they're a little better at holding. This is very sturdy plastic, but you really need to, if your clay is going to keep a while, you need to really make sure that this is nice and secure here. So either one like this or one like this would be ideal. Now I'm going to reposition the camera, take you over, and work these two pieces of clay. Okay, let's get started. Now you saw me throw this clay over on the other counter, and basically that loosens the clay, gets the clay particles all pliable, and helps me actually be able to roll out this clay. Now, and you'll notice that I use a lot of just regular old run-of-the-mill tools that you can get from anywhere. Now I use a large rolling pin to roll out my clay. You don't have to use a big one like this. You can use, for years I used the just one that I got from the thrift store. But the thing about clay is that clay does not roll out the same way as pie dough. It does not move on the birch very well. So it has to be turned often. And you need to roll it in different, so I'm flipping it and turning it at the same time. Now, at some point, we have to think about the shape that we're going to put this on, and I think for this first piece, we'll put it on this shape. So I want to get something that's going to be large enough. The reason these sticks are here is to gauge my thickness. Now, these are pretty thin and probably too thin for this piece. There's kind of a sweet spot between a 1/4 inch, which are these, and you can see these are just yardsticks that have been broken up. I have another set that are from a different hardware company that are aligning the crystals in the clay is important because it keeps your piece from cracking and also gives it strength and stability. And the way you do this is with a rib. Now there's lots of different kinds of ribs you can use. There's plastic, different thicknesses and hardnesses of plastic, but for just aligning the crystals and getting the clay prepared, the metal one is the best one to use. It's less likely to crack. We're going to do that on both sides, and as you can see, there's some finger marks in here, and those just magically smooth out during this process of aligning the clay. Okay, so we have a nice round piece that I've cut because I want to use a form. And the tools that I'm going to use here are going to be a banding wheel. This is like a Lazy Susan. This one is particularly heavy and so it won't go anywhere. Then we're going to use a bat. You can use any kind of wooden or plastic piece that's not too big. You can have it cut from pieces of birchwood if you like at your hardware store. And then I'm going to use my form. Now this particular form is a stainless steel form, so I'm going to need my cornstarch, which burns off in the firing process, so this certainly won't hurt the look of your clay or make it any less than. I probably got too much on there. But give it a nice good coat, especially at the edges, because that's really where it tends to stick. Then I'm going to take my clay and I'm going to lay it on this form. Sort of. Now you see that the top gets this wonderful little spot where the actual base of the form makes a bottom. And now what I'm doing is I'm just sort of forming the clay to the bowl. I'm going to move that just a little bit over. Clay is pretty forgiving when it's in this form. However, you don't want to make any creases in it. So you want to be gentle enough so that you're not folding it and making a crease in it. And a lot of times if you've gotten your clay too thick, it might tend to crease on you a little bit. But really, the trick is to do this kind of slow and steady, because the clay will find the shape. So, and you can kind of pull on it and just really work with it to make it what you want. Got a little mark in there somehow. A lot of that can be smoothed out. Now, a lot of people also use tools to compact the clay while it's on the form. There's lots of different tools that are available. Some people swear by this as a way of making the clay very durable and strong, and to eliminate any cracking or possibility of cracking, especially in larger pieces. Okay, so now you'll want to cut the edges a little bit. You can use almost anything. There are a lot of tools. You can use a kitchen knife. This is called a fettling knife. It's used in mold making. This is called a pin tool. You can also use this to cut. The nice thing about a pin tool is it doesn't drag on your piece very much. Now, I can pick it up and you'll see that the clay just tends to fall away from the bowl. Just tends to fall away here. So what we need to do is we need to dry it. There's a couple of different ways to dry a bowl. If you're in kind of a hurry and you want to complete this project in one day, and kind of get it ready to be bisque fired, so you want to trim it up and make it pretty in one day. You can put it in front of a fan, which I'll do, or you can cover it with another piece of plastic. And if you want to save it and work on it tomorrow, say it's not quite ready and you're not really happy with the shape of it, wrap it up really well and just put it aside, and this will stay damp and pliable for at least a day, if not longer. So one of the things that I use to kind of tap this in, this is also great for weighting down your pieces so that they don't warp while they're drying, but I'll get to that later. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to gently tap this into the bowl without getting a bunch of finger marks on it. So this is a sock filled with rice. You'll notice that most of the tools that I use, and this is so off center, it's not even funny. Most of the tools I use are, you know, either kitchen tools or stuff that I've made or things like that. That is why hand building can be a little less expensive to get into than wheel throwing, even though you can spend a lot of money. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. It's a little off center still, but nope, that just made it worse. Yep, so, you know, clearly you have to play with it a little bit to get it the way you want. Not gonna be perfect. There, that's pretty good. So we're gonna pat this in. And as you could see, the clay slid beautifully on this wooden form. And then we can always smooth out some of the there we go. And a lot of this can be smoothed out when the clay gets a little drier. Okay. So that's our third bowl.